Okay, so can you work with complex fractions? That is the topic of this video. And if you're not familiar with this term, complex fractions, we're looking at a complex fractions and basically, or complex fraction. Basically, a complex fraction is a fraction within a fraction. So here, in this particular problem, we have some fraction stuff in the numerator. It's not just a number. And in the denominator, we have more fraction stuff. So that's what a complex fraction is. It's not just one number or one value as a numerator or denominator. So when we have fractions over fractions, that is a complex fraction, and you need to know how to work with complex fractions. So this is a little kind of pop quiz. Of course, I'm going to teach you how to do this particular problem, but you might want to challenge yourself to see if you can do this problem. If you can't do this problem, you want to do something about it. What do you want to do? Well, you want to review fractions. If you're studying mathematics, anything, middle school or beyond, you need to know how to deal with complex fractions. So not difficult, but again, they are a little bit more complicated, and we're going to review kind of the process to handle complex fractions. Anyone can do them, but we certainly need to practice the techniques involved, and we're going to do that in just one second. But first, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is John. I'm the founder of TabletClass Math. I'm also a middle and high school math teacher, and over several years, I've constructed what I like to believe is one of the best online math help programs there is. Of course, I'll let you be the judge of that statement. You can check out my math help program. I followed the link in the description of this video, but basically I have 100 plus different math courses. Um, I have all the main courses for middle and high school math. Well, basically I started at pre-algebra. That's where I'm at now. So that's my kind of my lowest course, if you will. And then I have courses like Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2. These are full complete course curriculums. College algebra, going to be launching pre-calculus here shortly, but I also do a lot in the area of test preparation. So if you're studying for like the GED, high set, task, SAT, ACT, AccuPlacer, CLEP exam, teacher certification, nursing entrance, ASVAB, you get the picture. There's a ton of reasons why people are studying math outside of a math class. You may not be taking a math class, but you might be trying to learn math again because you got to take one of these exams. So go to my site and check out my course catalog. I have a lot of courses there. Should have the exam that you're studying for. If I don't, drop me a line and I will help you out the best I can. Also work a lot with independent learners like homeschoolers. So if you homeschool, I have a great homeschool learning program. So obviously you can check out on my site the information on that. And then I do a lot of work, obviously helping those of you that are struggling in your math class. Okay, so if you're having a tough time, let's say with complex fractions, that's probably a topic in like my pre-algebra course. Um, that's where you would want, that's where I teach fractions in. But, obviously, maybe you're taking Algebra 1, Geometry, whatever the case might be, I can help you out. But one thing you have to be doing to help yourself out if you're serious about doing well in mathematics, that is take great math notes, all right? Over decades of teaching math, one thing is clear to me. Those students who take great math notes almost always have excellent math grades, and the reverse is true. Those students who are looking at their cell phone, talking to their best friend, doing their homework for another class, all the things that I did way back in the 1980s. Of course, the cell phones were huge and I didn't have one, and they probably weren't going to be all that much fun anyways. But if I had a cell phone or smartphone back in those days, boy, I don't even know if I would have graduated. I was already distracted enough. So, again, obviously, I'm not trying to make you feel bad because I made all these mistakes. But I'm telling you, as a math teacher, if you're serious about doing well in math, you have to focus on note taking, right? It's critically important. All right, enough said there. But one thing, if you don't have great notes now, you definitely need something to study from. So I offer detailed, comprehensive math notes to include pre-algebra, algebra 1, geometry, algebra 2, and trigonometry. You can find links to those notes in the description of this video. Okay, so let's get into this complex fraction um, problem. Now, you can use a calculator. I do not want you to change these guys into decimals, but if you want to have a calculator to assist you in some of the arithmetic, I have no problem with that, as long as you're showing all your work. Okay, so imagine you're going to get a piece of paper, and a pencil out, and you're going to, like, show all the work here, and then you're going to turn it in, and then, I would grade it, and hopefully you will get an A+. But listen, whatever the case is, you're going to learn something. And let's go ahead and start now. All right, so we have a complex fraction. So how do we approach complex fraction problems? Well, here's the deal. Here is our big fraction bar here, and this guy is our numerator, and this thing down here is our denominator. So we have a fraction, we have a numerator, and we have a denominator, right? So just kind of like think about it in these terms, right? This will be our numerator, and this will be our denominator. So you want to work independently from these problems here. You want to break them up as two independent problems. What we want to do is do all this work, okay, and get a value, okay, get some sort of number, and that can either be a whole number, an integer, it could be a fraction, but we need to work on this and simplify this as one numerator, one value, and then we're going to do the same thing down here, okay, you're going to work on all of this and get that down as one value, one denominator, okay, and then at that point, we'll go ahead and tackle the remaining problem, right, which is going to be a much simpler version of what's going on here. Now, sometimes this is a nice, you might have a whole number here and a whole number here. We just don't know, but we have to start simplifying, and this is the way we're going to simplify. We're going to separate these guys into two problems. So just think of this as one problem, think about this as another problem, and then at the end, we'll deal with what's remaining, and we'll finish this problem. So if you want to, anytime during this video, I always encourage you to pause the video and go ahead and do the problem yourself. That would, give you the most value out of this practice problem. But let's go ahead and get to it now. All right, so here is our numerator, okay? So I'm going to do the numerator first. So that's 1/2 minus 3 1/3. So let's go ahead and just focus on this here. You can see I already did this problem in advance just to kind of avoid too much writing. So here is our numerator, 1/2 minus 3 1/3. So to do complex fractions, you obviously need to know how to do basic fraction operations, addition, subtraction, okay, multiplication, and division. So if you don't, understand, or if you're rusty on those basic fraction operations, I have tons of videos in my pre-algebra playlist on my YouTube channel. Again, if you really want to learn this stuff, you might want to jump into my pre-algebra course. But here, we need to figure out what 1/2 minus 3 1/3 is, okay? So let's go ahead and do that now. So 3 1/3 is the same thing as what? This is a mixed number. So we're going to go 3 times 3 is 9 plus 1, okay, is 10. So this problem, okay, you want to write that 3 1/3 as a improper fraction. So that's what this is equal to, 1/2 minus 10/3. Now, at this point, all right, this is a subtraction problem. So anytime you're dealing with addition and subtraction, you need to be thinking about the LCD. However, I do have a great fraction hack, all right, little trick. It's one of my things that I just love teaching about because it's one of the most useful little shortcuts when you're dealing with fractions. So check out in my algebra, pre-algebra playlist, all my videos on fractions and fraction hacks. I literally, a lot of these videos have hundreds of thousands of views. A lot of people are looking for little technique shortcuts with fractions. I don't blame them, but you need to know this one and review it. But I'll quickly show you it here. So of course, we know that LCD is 6. Okay, so that's correct. And as long as you can do this problem, that's what counts. But this little fraction hack, it's called the bow tie method. We just go 3 times 1, that's 3. All right, this is a subtraction problem, so 2 times 10, that's 20, and then 2 times 3, that's 6. So if you just found the LCD and did this your way, that's perfectly fine, but you're going to basically get 3 minus 20 over 6. Now, you definitely need to know your positive negative rules, all right, how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide positive and negative values. You got to be very careful here because we have 3 minus 20, that's a negative 17. Okay, that's our numerator. So that's negative 17 over 6. Okay, that's what we have so far. And this was our numerator. So up here, okay, at this point, okay, we just figured out that we have a negative 17 over 6 as our numerator. Again, we're just kind of whittling this problem down. Now we need to go in and figure out what our denominator is. So yeah, does this problem require work? That certainly does, right? You're not going to just do this 1, 2, 3. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the denominator. So recall the denominator is 8 plus 2/5 divided by 3. All right, so this is that problem. So how can we better see what's going on here or better interpret it? Well, let's just kind of read the problem. This is 8 plus, okay, 2/5. Now notice I'm keeping my grouping symbols. It's very, very important. 2/5. Now this fraction bar means the same thing as divided by. So I'm going to say 2/5 divided by 3. So just notice that this and this is the same, okay? And at this point, most of you could be like, okay, now I know what to do here. Now, 2/5 divided by 3, we're dealing with fractions, so you want to think of 3 as a fraction. How can we make any number a fraction? Just put it over 1, and now we can see it as a fraction, right? So 7 as a fraction, for example, is 7 over 1, all right? So that's how we want to deal with this. Now, of course, at this point, you need to know how to divide fractions. Okay, if you don't know how these basic operations, then this video is going to be too much for you. You want to go back to like my pre-algebra course or my pre-algebra playlist on my channel and just review basic fraction operations. But basically, the way we're going to deal with division of fractions is we're going to turn it into a multiplication problem, and we're going to flip this fraction to the right. So we're dividing 3 over 1. The fraction to the right of the division symbol, we're going to flip upside down. That's called the reciprocal. And now we got 1/3. So 3 over 1, if I flip it upside down, I would do whoop like that, I'm going to get 1/3. All right. So now we have 2/5 times 1/3. Okay, now I need to know how to multiply fractions. And how do you multiply fractions? Well, we're going to multiply the respective numerators and denominators. Now, notice I'm working inside these parentheses. Parentheses are what we call grouping symbols, and you always need to work on what's inside parentheses first before you do anything on the outside. So that's why I'm focused there. We'll deal with this 8 here in a second. All right, let's continue to move forward here. So I have 2/5 times 1/3. That's 2 times 1. That's 2. That's my numerator. And then 5 times 3 is 15. Okay, so now I'm down to 8 plus 2 15ths. Okay, so I'm like, wow, this is a lot of work. Yes, it is a lot of work, but nothing that you can't handle. Remember, math is really step by step. That's the key here. All right, so 8 plus 2 15ths. Let's go ahead and just write that this way. 8 is the same thing as 8 over 1, okay, plus 2 15ths. So now I can drop these parentheses because there's nothing else to do here. I'm done, so I can drop those grouping symbols. All right, at this point, you need to know how to add fractions. So just like that previous problem where we're subtracting fractions, you need to think about the LCD or that bow tie method, okay? But let's go ahead and just kind of approach this way. So we got 1 and 15. What's the lowest common denominator? Hopefully, most of you said, oh, it's 15, so I need to multiply this denominator by 15 and this numerator by 15. Okay, so 15 times 1 is 15, and 15 times 8 is 120. So 8 over 1 is the same thing as a fraction 120 over 15, but I'm writing it that way because this fraction is 2 15ths. Now I have common denominators. So when you have a common denominator, two fractions you're trying to add, and the denominators are common, or i.e. the same, I just simply add the numerator. So that's 120 plus 2, or 122. Okay, so now that is my denominator. So moving on. Okay, let's take a look at where we're at so far. All right, so we did our numerator work, and if you recall, we got that fraction negative 17 over 6 as our answer, and then we just finished up with all this work, and we got 122 over 15. Okay, so we're getting there. So now, again, how do I look at this? Well, this is going to be this fraction divided by this fraction. That's how you interpret this complex fraction. So let's go ahead and write it as such. All right, again, this divided by this. Let's go ahead and write it out. So that's negative 17 over 6, okay, divided by 122 over 15. How do I handle that? Well, again, I'm going to turn this division operation into multiplication by flipping this guy, this 122 over 15. So it's going to be 15 over 122. All right, so now notice I have a negative fraction times a positive fraction. So negative times a positive is going to be what sign? It's going to be negative, right? So a lot of moving parts here in this complex fraction problem. That's why I think it's a good review, because any particular thing that you're confused about, whether it's your positive or negative numbers or finding the LCD, make mental notes of those and then go back and review, okay? All right, so now how do I handle this? Well, at this point, I simply got to multiply the respective numerators and denominators. So let's go ahead and do that now. We're almost done. So we have negative 17 over 6 times 15 over 122. Okay. Now, one thing you can do when you're multiplying is look to cross cancel. So some of you might be familiar with this here. Say, okay, I know that 6 and 15, 2 or 3 goes into 6, 2, and 3 goes into 15, 5. So instead of using these large numbers, okay, I can kind of reduce this down, cross-canceling like factors. Again, I have additional videos on this, but basically I can multiply negative 17 times 15 and 6 times 122, but then I would have to reduce my fraction. Okay, this is kind of like helping us reduce the amount of reducing work at the end of this problem. So that's why I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to just I cross cancel these factors now, and then I'll multiply my negative 17 times 5, and that gives me a negative 85. And then I have 2 times 122. That gives me my 244. And you notice here 17 is prime. There's no like factors between 17 and 122, and 2 and 5 are prime. So this will be our final answer, negative 85 over 244. And if you got that right, all on your own, I would definitely give yourself a gigantic happy face with a mohawk, an A plus 1,000%, and a few extra stars here just as good order. That's very good. Okay, what I'm saying is, nice job, nice work, nice work. A lot of students, would be intimidated by this problem, or they think, oh, I don't know what to do. The worst thing you never do is turn this fraction problem into decimals. You're like, oh, I got my calculator, I'll just change all the fractions to decimals. Definitely never want to do that. Okay, you need to learn how to manage a problem step by step by step. And these problems can take time. That's why you have to be neat, structured, step by step by step by step. And how do you learn to do math that way? Well, you're writing down, hopefully your teacher is showing you all the steps to do in these particular problems, and you're putting that down in your notes. Believe me when I tell you, when I'm talking about note taking as being critically important, I'm taking the time, because if you're watching these videos, if you're, one of my subscribers, I'm helping people get, really trying to help them get great at math. All right. So that's, I don't want you to waste your time. Be like, okay, I know how to do that 1, 2, 3. And then, you're not going to go, practice your structure and neatness and organization or take notes, because you're not going to be nearly as successful. Okay. And if you start getting into more advanced mathematics, you're going to start struggling. So just take it from me. There's a lot of things I can't do, but teaching math, I've been doing for decades and decades. Believe me, I'm pretty good at it. All right. So if you just trust me on this one, you're going to always end up like this at the end of your tests and quizzes. And that's awesome, because believe me, as a math teacher, nobody likes to give out these little F's and or D's. That's just like, we all like to get this stuff right here. Okay. So that's basically it for this video, complex fractions. And if you're able to work with this, good for you. Now, one thing that you want to be thinking about, okay, if you're able to work with numbers, what if these guys were variables like A, B plus over C divided by, in algebra, especially more advanced mathematics, you work with crazy expressions that involve variables, numbers, and everything else. So, before you can master all that, you got to first learn how to work with numeric fractions, right? So you got to go back and really make sure you really know all the basic fraction operations: addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, positive, negative numbers, mixed numbers, improper fractions, reducing, etc. Right? I think a lot of students assume they know that better than they actually do. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and wrap it up now. If this video helped you out, if you liked it in some way, please consider smashing that like button, and hopefully you'll consider subscribing. Again, remember, on my pre-algebra playlist on my channel, I have all types of math videos there, but you'll find a lot of videos on fractions to help you review, and obviously my best help will be in my math program. Okay, so with that being said, I definitely wish you all the best in your mathematics adventures. Thank you for your time and have a great day.